I always feel like every word, we're telling our story, and we have the agency to change it every time. Like and I have thought for a long time that that was kind of, that kind of like personal help stuff, useless stuff. But I think that when you put it into action, it really, really has an impact. So I think there is a lot to be said about what Eric just shared. I would say the thing that stuck the most with me was just the idea of challenging the preconceived path, thinking that actually any path is possible, and that there might be potentially no barriers along the way, or that we have the ability to overcome any barrier that stands in our way. And I love that because our next speaker, Dr. Michael Nagler, he's someone that's proved to do that. And he will essentially show us, through the example of what he's done in Mineola, how they have tried to adapt and change their school and their system to essentially the new world that's coming here. I mean, the future of work. And within this, obviously, there are many, many things to be talked about. But one key thing is we cannot get our kids just memorizing stuff. It's just not only about content. And I think we all know it, at least in this room. And so one of the core points of his speech today will be, how do we, as a school, as a district, build the infrastructure to make sure that the development of skills, of competencies, is at the core and at the heart of what we do. Big task, but successfully done. And I'm very excited to welcome Dr. Michael Nagler to the stage.
All right.
Oh, yours, Mike. Up.
Or as,
There we go.
there we go. Get that picture off quickly. So where do I have to be to get this to work? Okay. Hey, hi. Oh, that was bad. I had my second cup of coffee, so I'm ready. So I'm gonna answer Eric's first question about the goal. So my goal in my timeline was before I retire, which is amorphous. Who knows what that is? But I'm a lot older than you are. Is to change public education. I don't know how we're going to measure that, but in my place we do some crazy things. There's not an idea that's not crazy, so I look forward to sharing it with you. So is this not going to work? I had this thing in my head in New York State. Have we changed anything since I went to high school? And I didn't go all the way back to the 80s when I went to high school, but here's just over the last 20-something years, nothing has changed. In fact, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I'm going to give you a quote now. Be prepared to write it because you're going to use it. The only human that embraces change is a baby with a dirty diaper. And that's our struggle. That's our challenge as leaders, is to change a system that everybody knows and loves and is nostalgic about. And there was nothing wrong with it. I turned out okay. Why do I need to change? And that's our challenge. And I don't know how many of you have seen this white paper that came out last January by WEC. It speaks about Education 4.0. And it talks about the future of work, but it's easy read. It's maybe 20 pages. Download it. It's free. Very interesting stuff. But my conclusion from it is content is dead. We are structured in our school system around content, and it is dumb in this point. We all walk around with phones. Information is ubiquitous, yet we structure everything we do in this country around content. We don't ask kids to apply that content. We don't give them skills to use the content. We're hyper-focused on content. And of course, then we have to test it and then rank and sort schools based on results. based on results that is on a bell curve. So half of the kids will automatically fail. Even my poor math skills understand that. We put things on a bell curve. We set up a system, half of the kids fail. And then we talk about moving everyone that's not proficient, moving them above a proficiency rate that we create. So it's a weird system, and in it is becoming more and more important for us to focus on what do humans do well and what do machines do well. Because my teacher friends here asked me one of my favorite questions. How often do you give homework to kids that a computer cannot do? Ask your teachers that. It's a very difficult question to answer because we don't. We're built, homework is built on rote memorization and regurgitating facts. Our system is that. And this is a great book by, he's the CEO of the Accenture Group. He talks about where is the balance in the workforce and in the job market for humans and machines. And there is a missing middle that we're trying to predict what the workforce is going to be going forward. It's a dense book, but the concept is really some. One of my favorite jobs is that he talks about is data scientist. 10 years ago, it didn't exist. Now it's one of the most popular jobs. Machines will generate massive amount of data, but still don't know how to interpret it. We still need people to put that data in context and develop it around solving a problem or whatever the task may be. I asked ChatGPT, what can't you do? It's a simple question. I don't know how I phrased it. What do humans do better than you, or what can't you do that humans can do better? And this is what it comes up with. So I'm going to pause here for a moment, and I'm going to ask you to do a little turn and talk and give me an example, or share with us an example. Any one of those boxes, or pick your own. What in your school do you do in any of those areas? Or said differently, when are you asking kids to be human? Try and talk, come on. Don't be afraid. All right, who can share something? What did we come up with? Anyone? Yeah. As if you didn't hear, it was group work and be able to discuss in classrooms. How many of us teach that to our teachers? We do lesson design and we teach them how to create lessons that encourage and foster communication amongst students. How many of you do that in your high schools? Don't lie to me. Got those content. How many of your high school math classes are turning and talking and doing group work? I share this story. My daughter went away to college last year. She's pre-med, and science and math. Those are the subjects she's in. So I said, what do you do in class? She says, well, we go to class and they do a little lesson, but every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we get a problem set. Well, I'm like, well, what's the problem set? Well, the problem set, Dad, is we have to get together with a bunch of kids, go to the math building and science building, and we work on this problem set of impossible things they want us to solve that they really didn't teach us about in class, so we're supposed to figure it out. And then once we get our answers, we go to the math center and we check our answers. And if we don't get it right, we got to go back into the group and we got to work until we get it right. And then we hand it in on a Wednesday and we get our new problem set. And the entire semester is this process of collaborating, checking your answers, handing in work. Somehow, everybody gets a different grade. They figure out the variance within these problem sets, and they can determine how kids are doing going forward. Science and math. That's the structure. By the way, my daughter goes to Harvard. You see how I did that? It's a dad brag. The most prestigious university in our country is able to figure out that kids should be collaborating, and we can still do the work by asking them to solve problems, not regurgitate. Apply the information we just taught you to a practical piece. And it sounds so simple. But how are we structured? Who was the one that said about the testing before? I know, I heard it behind. So, we're built on tests. We're built, the structure is we have to do well on exams, and we forsake the learner sometimes. So this piece of how we're going to change really goes back to our learners and say, how do we give them the independence in the work to achieve the work? And everything points to it. Here's the other. What are the skills? The shift of content to skills is the greatest challenge we have to move the change. And it's directly related to the future of work. I ask people all the time, what's the purpose of school? Sometimes I get the do-gooders tell me we have to be citizens of a democracy, and that's what we're teaching. But the reality is we want a workforce. We need to populate a workforce, and everyone's got to make a living in this country, so how do they do that? But the future of work is changing. We may not see it as teachers, but how many of us know people that aren't going in 5 days a week anymore? That remote is a thing now. You can actually work and do a living remote. How many of our own teachers don't think they're going to work for 30 years and collect a pension? Like, that was my goal. This is my 37th year. I was thinking, hey, I'm going to retire. It's going to be a good gig. Future work has changed, and how does that change with the future of high school? This is specifically, the one on the left is my diagram. The one on the right I stole from somewhere. I don't remember where. But how can we mirror this notion of the future of high school has to change with the future of work? And it matters how we ask kids to do things. We do a ton of asynchronous work in Mineola. Kids love it. Adults love it. Why can't we do it with kids? Why does everything have to be brick and mortar? What's a hybrid solution to that? How do we do work? I started at high school where all the courses are in the cloud. We don't have periods. Kids can come in and do work independently, and they schedule their day. I'll talk about that in a little more. But this is all looking at how we do things, mirroring what society is doing. I find it the biggest struggle is parents want all the convenience of technology, all of the convenience that is out there in the world, but they don't want school to have that. They want school in this nostalgic silo of 30 years ago, and it's not going to produce kids prepared for the future of work. If you graduated high school in 2020, when you started kindergarten in 2007, the iPhone was created. In the course of your high school career, mobile devices eclipsed desktops. Information was all over the place. What did school do? Nothing. We don't react to the change that's occurring. It's that old saying, people yell at me because they say it's factually not true, but if you put a frog in boiling water, it jumps out. But if you put it in tepid water and bring it to a boil, you'll cook it. Slow change over time is how we accomplish things, and somehow in public education, we can't figure that out. There's a little video of, I wrote this script 2 years ago as I was contemplating my big ideas of how I want to move forward in changing high school? Because you hit play on that.
When you examine a learner's experience in a traditional high school, there isn't a lot of choice. Their path is chosen for them. The day is based on periods in which a learner spends a specific amount of time learning discrete material in a particular subject. We have created core subjects and classes that are required, regardless of student interest or applicability to the outside world. And each silo has its own assessment. They could be Regents exams, finals, midterms. Content and assessment go hand in hand, which leads to teaching to the test. The tests determine course credit, which ultimately leads to graduation. Assessment drives education. Communities are obsessed with ranking and sorting schools, so leaders often forsake the needs of learners to produce laudable test scores. So where does that leave the learner? How can we put the learner at the center? Putting the learner at the center requires a different look at how learners interact with curriculum and assessment. In doing so, the structure of high school changes. Instead of separate silos, the learner experience radically changes by finding new synergy at the intersections of assessment, curriculum, and agency. When content intersects student agency, the emphasis becomes transfer, or the learner's ability to apply what they have learned to a new situation, beyond the context of what is learned. We shift to an emphasis of know-how, not just knowledge. We get an integrated curriculum that itself is built on the intersections of multiple academic disciplines. We focus on project-based learning, student choice and voice, and a transfer of skills. We allow for asynchronous learning that embraces competency-based learning and allows learners to own their time, space, and passions. And when content collides with assessment, we shift away from assessment for a grade and toward assessment as a tool for learning. To ameliorate learner angst and stress over grades, we shift to badges as the primary means of assessment. Badges are organized in learning pathways that clearly delineate what a learner needs to know. It's assessment that aids students on their journey, rather than judging them when they're finished. This shift emphasizes student work and portfolios. It also showcases all of the attributes we want learners to possess when they pursue life after high school. And when assessment and student agency intersect, we shift the ownership of learning to the learner. We create self-directed learners. Instead of passive vessels, we will inspire and teach learners to be advocates for themselves. We create an opportunity for students to control their time, space, and interests, to pursue passion projects, learn from mentors, and have the personal autonomy to foster independent thinking and responsibility. When education is viewed with these intersections, we can see the future. It's still high school, but in a new, more collaborative environment, a new vision, with a focus on collaboration, intersection, and synergy.
So you think about that. So we launched this 2.5 years ago. We've already changed it 5 times, 6 times. I'm looking at Whitney here. I lose track of stuff. And it's that notion of what's the common language. How do we define what we're trying to accomplish? We make videos like this all the time as our method to explain what we're trying to accomplish to our communities. And more importantly, to our teachers and our kids. So that common language is incredibly important when you staking your vision moving forward. We got it? You know, this is my shameless plug for a book. It's an excellent book. I happen to have written it. I call it ENR thinking. I call it this evolution, not revolution thinking. When you shock the system in public education, it doesn't work. We've had decades of reform movements that haven't changed anything. But slow change over time really makes it happen. And it's really just similar to what Eric was saying, was you put your stake in the ground to where you want to be 3-5 years from now, and what's my incremental change that going to take me there? And how am I going to involve my teachers to make that change happen? I'm going to give you a few examples of what we've done in our district. One of them is we don't have a portrait of a graduate. I'm not a big fan of it. I think it's aspirational. It doesn't do grassroots movement. We have this is our instructional model. Everything we do in the district has to fit in one of these 4 categories. And you'll notice if you read through them, it's everything. Everything is there. So if you want to do something, you can sink your teeth into any one of those things. But what's important to me is I don't tell principals how to do this. Principals have the autonomy to do it any way they want. That's age appropriate and purposeful. But you have to show how it's in line with a PK-12 system. And you get a lot of grassroots things that really flourish. And then this changes over time. We started 5 years ago. Our instructional model had 5 different categories on the left that we realized we outgrew, and we had to change because the work we were doing was making it change. And this year, the beginning of last year, we launched the new version of our instructional model because times dictated that. Board goals. These are this year's board goals. This is my board telling me I want this stuff to happen. These are aspirational in some sense, but they're very tangible in others because we can pinpoint things. But it starts with the board goals. I love this. I found this on the internet. It's the Regional Educational Laboratory Programs. But how do you take this concept of competency-based? If we're going to put the emphasis back on the learner and give learner autonomy, we have to have new structures that make that happen. And this is not, it's a heavy lift in the beginning, but it's certainly doable. And we're going to give you some examples of elementary school as well, because we have a very elaborate badging system. We don't give grades. We don't have 1, 2, 3, 4. We issue badges to kids. The badges are all based on the standards. And it's much more age appropriate. We have little sticker books in pre-K to 2. That's the report card. All of it's free online if you want to look at it. We share everything we do in Mineola. So this was our challenge in the younger grades, is how can we do this? Because the report cards were not working for our teachers. And this is a cycle. This is something that has happened. We're currently in 5th grade with our badge book, or the next version of our badge book. So this has been a 6-year process. This is iterated for 6 years, changed by my teachers, rethought, every year basically they rip it apart and build it new. We have time. What's my cutoff time? Are we still 10:15? Okay, well, let's show this video then.
Report cards in the past have been a handful, to say the least.
This is Allie Bauer, and she's a kindergarten teacher.
They are hard for me to even process, let alone I can imagine the parents and the students.
And she's not wrong. This is a kindergarten report card.
So a traditional report card is a black and white document with lots of little tiny words and numbers that leave our kids kind of out of the equation. And we wanted to think of a way we could get our students involved in talking about their progress, tracking their progress, and thinking about their growth.
For us in kindergarten, it's so important for the learning to really be tangible, and the report cards really just weren't doing that for them. So our solution to the problem was creating these badges.
A badge is a sticker that a student will earn to represent a skill or concept that they have learned and mastered.
It's really just replacing grades.
Every badge is directly correlated to a New York State standard.
The standard was really just a code for teachers. It was teacher jargon, basically.
We've essentially taken the standards that the state has given to us and put them into language that we can understand and that our students can understand.
They need to identify 2D shapes, not KG.1 or whatever standard.
This really makes it kid-friendly, and
We could pause it there. We don't have to watch the whole video. You get the concept. So what are your concerns about that system? I'm telling you it works, but maybe you're all thinking about it now and saying, would this work for us? Could this work for us? Was your board supportive of this? Did they come up with the open idea? So parents love it K1, 2, and then they hated it in 3rd grade. I'll talk about that in a sec. Well, you know, the standards get more voluminous and you get state testing, and now, you know, my kid's going to fall behind. But before I get there, think of a kindergarten teacher. Now you're doing this badge stuff. What's the first thing you think a kindergarten teacher says? First thing they're worried about. Ooh. Well, you can't get a badge unless you earn it. Yeah, well, you know, like a badge counting to 10. It's kind of easy. Count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. Either you get the badge or you don't get the badge because you can perform the task or meet the criteria or not. So what happens? Assessments, we have a system and we do it in conferencing, and we have a program called ESGI that cranks that out. Well, give me the converse. Oh, yeah, you guys are not kindergarten teachers. Kindergarten teachers right off the bat. What if they don't get it? What if they don't earn the badge? So this is a great question for my teachers. I was like, I don't know. What happens when they don't meet the standard? It's no different. So the teachers came up with this ingenious concept of teaching brain science to our youngest learners. And we talk about neurons, and we talk about growth mindset, and we talk about their amygdala and their prefrontal cortex. And they use these words, and they're able to tell us that I'm growing my neurons. I'm not there yet. And they literally, we give out neuron stickers because they keep working on their badges. A lot of times you just stick it on their forehead. So you walk in you got these neuron stickers on kids' foreheads because they're working on growing their brains. And it's this culture that developed in our younger schools that is so phenomenal to see. Yet, parents still say, we got tests to take. So we had to come up with a system, and we failed. When we did 3rd grade badge books the first time, it was a miserable failure. And we needed to come up with either abandon the concept and go to grades, or come up with a different way to do school in 3rd and 4th grade. And our badge books became proficiency scales. Anybody familiar with Robert Marzano's work in proficiency scales? Well, basically, let's see if we can get this video to show, because it explains it. If not, I can do it.
We're thrilled to be introducing proficiency scales as a part of the learning experience at Mineola. Today, we'll take a deeper look at what these scales look like right here at Jackson Avenue. Proficiency scales are the foundation of the new badge books in 3rd and 4th grade. Through these scales, we offer our learners and their families a solid understanding of what each child needs to learn during the academic school year. Every standard, or groups of standards, now comes with its own proficiency scale, charting our learners' progress from introduction to application. The scale is like a ladder, helping our learners grow their insight, knowledge, and abilities to apply their learning at more and more complex levels. Let's take a closer look at one of these standards. Right now, we're looking at the Story Elements badge, which is a part of our integrated curriculum. The first level of learning is insight. At this level, learners are introduced to the concept of characters and setting. The second level is knowledge. This is where learners begin to develop key vocabulary, background knowledge, and skills that are the foundation for earning the badge. For example, here in the Story Elements badge, learners at the knowledge level begin to practice identifying and describing character and setting in texts. And as you can see, there isn't just one goal or skill to achieve here. Instead, there are a number of skills that go into this work. And so there are a number of checkboxes. As learners gain knowledge, they are able to see their progression and clearly define their next goals. The knowledge level is where learners will spend most of their time in a badge, sometimes up to half a year. Once the goals at the knowledge level are accomplished, we move up to the application level. Here is where learners put their acquired knowledge and skills to practice by applying them to more complex activities. For example, Once learners are able to identify character and setting in texts, they apply this skill to analyzing how characters and settings contribute to the theme of the story. Once a learner has fulfilled their goals in the application level and earned all of their check marks, they've earned this badge indicated by a star. Transfer is set off to the side to suggest it's not a part of the upward climb, but instead a branch into other disciplines. After all, what's truly important about knowledge is our ability to use that knowledge to consider and create new ideas and skills. Our badge books, filled with proficiency scales, will be sent home throughout the school year, which is designed to give families more frequent insight into their learners' accomplishments, as well as to support communication between teachers and families. The badge book comments will clearly state which badges the learners are working on.
I'm gonna stop it there. So you get this idea. We take a standard,
We're thrilled to be.
We make it hierarchical, and the problem with the standard-based reporting is parents want to see a 4, but that's an end of the year standard, and 4 is not even proficient. 3 is proficient. 4 is exceeding proficiency. So how do we take away this discussion of my kid? We're not even doing work in the 3 and 4 in the first trimester. Kids really should be at 2. There'll be a small percentage that are proficient, but most of the time they're working on gaining a knowledge and then applying it. So we take away the numbers. In reality, 2 is knowledge, 3 is proficient, and 4 is transfer. But we use those words. We're working on knowledge, and we tell them we're working on this story element badge. The first trimester is all about knowledge. Don't expect your kids to be in application. But then you tell the learner, and I go into my 3rd and 4th graders, and I talk to them about, well, tell me what you're doing. Well, I'm working on application, and I got 3 out of 4 of my check boxes, and I'm stuck on this part of the badge, and that's the work my teacher is giving me. When you talk about personalized learning, we're getting incremental in how we talk to learners about where they are. And they keep evidence binders. So all of the kids keep an evidence binder, and the little icon of the badge matches the check boxes that they do. And the kids are required to go conference with their teachers to earn their badge. The conference is, here's my evidence folder. I think I've earned this. What do you think? And the teacher has a conversation with that learner and say, yeah, it's pretty clear that you've accomplished this. Now what's your next goal? It happens every day in 3rd and 4th grade. And it's a wonderful conversation to see. We're not working on a deficit model. I'm framing my next video. We're talking about the next video about grading and how the current structure of grading starts at you only lose. You start at 100 and you lose points. And your grade is a quarterly grade, but you get a grade for the whole year. So why don't we speak about what the yearly grade is and how I can move toward a higher grade, and I can keep fixing things in the first quarter if I didn't get them right, and then it dawned on me in the second quarter, can I get credit for now what I didn't learn in the first part? When I have the epiphany of something, and why can't that work in my favor? Why is it always a deficit model for me? And the structure of particularly subject classes in high school is based that way. So we've implemented this, and now it's in our middle school. And I launched this school. I said before, Synergy is it's to shame my high school teachers, basically. They hate when I say this. But I got tired of beating my head against the wall with my high school teachers, so I launched a new version of high school. Literally across the street, I bought a bank across the street from my high school, and we started a new high school. That is part of my current high school. It's just a choice for kids. If you want to do high school the traditional way, you can. If you want to try out this new way we call Synergy, you can do that too. Synergy challenges time, space, and pace. We leverage the notion of asynchronous, hybrid, and in-person learning. All of the courses are in the cloud. They could take them any way they want. They have responsibilities that come into school. They set up their day. You ever go to a conference and you build your schedule and you're like the app? You get the app and you build your day out? That's what the kids do. We literally have a program where they drag in things and create their day. Keeps track of all the stuff they're working on. Everything they do in the cloud is tracked. There's no problem with seat time. There's no problem with how much time do they work on it. There are subject area teachers on the floor. We call it on the floor. And kids do conference. They do office hours. They could do seminars. They could meet with their teachers whenever they want if they're stuck. They have to come to school. This is not a virtual school. They have to come to school. And when they come to school, we're typically working on project-based stuff. They just finished a wind turbine competition, and they're moving on to a Rube Goldberg competition. And they'll get credit for science and hands-on stuff. And they figure out their day. And when you think about if I asked you, your high school is 6 hours and 55 minutes, what's the best use of your time during that 7 hours? Would you say the best use is to sit for 40 minutes with a whole bunch of kids and wait for them to teach me how to do something? Or if I said to you, like my wife said the other day, the dishwasher is broken, fix it. Okay, what do? I don't call the repairman anymore. I go to YouTube. I said, type in the model number, type in the error code. How do I fix my dishwasher? And there's four different videos on how to fix your dishwasher. Try it. Next problem you have that you don't know, go to YouTube. What do you think the kids are doing? They get stuck on something, they go to use their resources. Sometimes they pick a bad resource. We need to teach them how to do that a little better, but that's how they learn. It's not our generation anymore. How do we leverage that in school? And we've changed this. So I just go through these quickly. It started with a blackboard, and now we have an app on the time management pace. We have a competency-based learning management system called Empower. We use it in our elementary school. Now, the nice thing about proficiency scales is it's competency-based. I did not flick that switch yet, but I built it that way. Talk about those systems again. Don't think about what you're doing now. Think about where you want to go. So I already built, and the teachers know it's a full competency-based. Parents aren't ready for it yet. I can't unleash that yet. But it's there when I want it. And we're doing the same in middle school. And it's all choice. If you don't want to try the new thing, you can do it the old way. And then space. None of my classrooms look like desks and rows. We don't have it. You come to my place, my district, every building, it's flexible seating, rideable tables, space, kids spill out into the hallways. Class is really not defined as class. Synergy 2.0, so this high school, we're about to open literally a replica of Starbucks. I told you I bought a bank, it had a drive-through. So I'm like, oh, that would be a cool coffee shop. So we built out this coffee shop. We tricked it out just like a Starbucks would be tricked out, and we're teaching business classes and entrepreneurship in that space. We started a whole certification program. So we are about to launch a fully virtual industry standard certification for kids that are interested. So if you want to go get Adobe Illustrator cert, we have a platform for you to do it. There's no credit. It really has nothing to do with your high school diploma. But if you want a skill that makes you more marketable, here's this option that you have. And we'll do it for Cisco certification. We'll do it for Autodesk. We'll do it for the whole Adobe suite. And it's asynchronous. And we'll pay, if you pass the test, we'll reimburse you for what it costs you to take the test. We also have in-person options. So we're running a new EMT program. Whitney is actually sitting in on every class. You're missing today. You got to make up today. He's literally going to that class every day with 20 other kids to earn his EMT certification. Because as an adult, he was curious and he wanted the option to do it. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. If you're crazy enough to do it, I'll be happy to support you doing it. So those are options, is this flexible notion of how do we build out in-person opportunities, asynchronous opportunities, and hybrid. All of our every kid in Mineola must take AP Computer Science Principles. It's a requirement in 9th grade. It's a hybrid class. It meets every other day. We give the teacher 4 periods instead of 5, and she holds office hours. So any kid that needs help schedules a time with that teacher and gets help. That's an AP course we treat as a hybrid. And it's not about how many kids pass it. It's about giving everybody the opportunity to be exposed to CS because we think CS is important. That's the certification piece. That's some of the way we're framing our in-person and PAVE. What we're calling PAVE is that online platform. I got ahead of my schedules. And this is really for my leaders here. And when I say that, it's for everybody, because all of you, in one respect, are leading some initiative. This is a journey. It's a daunting, it's the same, I'm just saying what Eric said in a different way. It's the same concept of how do you take a big idea and actualize it? How do you eat the elephant? One bite at a time. So here's how we've done it over the last 5 years to where we get, because it sounds great what we're doing, but it just didn't happen yesterday. This is a long journey we've been on.
How do we build the school of the future? It's hard to imagine what that school will need to look like. It could seem so far past the horizon that it's impossible to see. But maybe it's as simple as building a bridge. It starts where we are now, and it stretches toward where we want to go, like a puzzle that we need to build. The problem is, this puzzle doesn't come with a picture on the box. So how do you begin? One piece at a time. At Mineola, our vision for the future started with our instructional model. The instructional model identified 5 initiatives that provided multiple ways for educators to work on the puzzle, which became the foundation of our bridge. Our badge book is a great example of the evolution of redefining assessments. Each year, the badge book was changed based on constituent feedback, making new connections and scaling the work. We quickly added micro badges, learner portfolios, and now proficiency scales. Our bridge was beginning to grow. Meanwhile, in a completely different part of the picture, our high school team was working on flexible learning spaces. Those pieces clicked so well together, it inspired the middle school to build it in the same way. And just like that, our district was building a bridge. The same thing was happening with growth mindset and the integrated curriculum and computational thinking. Suddenly, the picture became clearer. Built by small steps that put learners first, our initiatives evolved. And now, that picture leads us into the future, out toward the horizon, where we can see our new instructional model beginning to take shape. It's impossible to know what the future will bring, but it's always important to be building toward it. And that's exactly what we're doing here in Mineola, piece by piece.
Mineola Creative Content is a YouTube page. It's a free resource for anybody who wants to use it. All of these videos are on there. There's tons of other educational videos on there as well. All of our growth mindset initiatives are free. It's on mineolagrows.com, has a full SEL curriculum, pre-K to 12. We share everything. That's our way of giving back. But the purpose of that video is that you can get overwhelmed with how to take the first step and find 100 reasons not to take the first step. But those little pieces, and it starts at the teacher level. You have your champions that are doing this work. Piece by piece, they come together. And your job as a leader is like, oh, now we got to make connections. So-and-so in that school is doing this. I need you to see it. Don't you want to, let's go do a visitation and check it out. You like that? Why don't we do it here? And it's purposeful and incremental to a bigger picture. And then before you know it, you outgrew your instructional model. And now you built a new one. I didn't build it. My district built it. And that's going to get outdated, and I need to do another one. You know, in school, I'm very into startups, you know, and this notion of an MVP. It's called a minimal viable product. Startups put out an MVP. So you know when you do the new OS, how many of you are crazy people, you got to download the thing right away? As soon as the new OS comes out, you have to download it. You got to have the new version. And you know that new version is filled with bugs on purpose. They don't put out something that's completely, they want you to find the bug and complain about it, and guess what they do? They fix it. How do I get the best product? Well, we'll put out the minimal thing, and we'll wait for people to tell us what's wrong with it, and then we'll fix it immediately, and we'll grow a better experience because we're getting instant feedback and we're making changes on the fly. School, we don't do that. We take a full year to plan something. We go through, if it's not working, we'll go, at the end of the year, we'll review it. Maybe we'll get some formative stuff and we'll review it. We're very reluctant to change things midstream because we're a traditional institution. But society doesn't work like that. So matching what we do in society becomes a little more daunting in how we manage our buildings. And that if I preach anything, that flexibility and nimbleness to do the change quicker is better for kids. You know, ultimately, you do third grade once. Let's get third grade the best it could possibly be for that individual student as they do it. I don't know why I picked third grade. Came up first. And that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Or not. I could do that too. He just told me to keep the mic, so I'm doing it.
I did. What's up?
I might. I take the bass.
Mike, thank you so much. That was very insightful. And there are many thoughts running through my head, and I'm guessing that's also your case. So before going to our coffee break, really, I want to devote some time for questions. I'm sure several of you have. And I just want to piggyback on one thing, right? I mean, it's one step at a time, and it's probably many mistakes at a time. So we have to embrace that. And so let's embrace, even if our thoughts now are, not very rational or just don't make sense, or we think it's going to be a silly thing to share with the room, let's just do it. That's okay.
That's presentation fire hose, by the way. Drink out of the fire hose. Yeah.
How many kids are in Synergy?
We launched with 30 kids. It was a vestige from an old alternative high school. So the new cohort matched. So we're still at 30. We're finding that the parents that'll take the chance on it, because it's really about parents, the kids will jump at it a lot faster, are my high flyers that are frustrated with the traditional model, which it makes sense. I built it, the concept came from my son. My son loves to learn, and he hates school. Although it's getting better now that he's a junior and senior and he gets to really focus on subjects he wants to take, it's a lot less fighting with him because he's engaged in the material he wants to be engaged in. But when we force kids to do stuff they don't want to do is where the conflict happens. I'm sorry, I'm old.
Yours.
We're sandwiched in high schools between expectations of the community and then expectations of college and what you're producing and being. So how has that worked with kids where they're applying and what they're able to show?
Yeah, Synergy is college. If I'm a college and I hear the description of that program and you're successful in that program, I want you. It's just a matter of educating the schools what the experience is. We're going to have our first wave of Synergy kids applying this year, and I have no doubt they're going to get to the schools they want. It's this crossover of kids that are disengaged that don't want to go to college that'll do Synergy, as well as the complete opposite. So it's a program that meets both ends. No, you still have to graduate high school. So all the things that any kid in a traditional high school takes, in our case, it's Regents exams and SATs, ACTs, all those things they still have to accomplish. So it's, and these are very interesting because they're typical parent questions. They're the questions about why I won't send them there because it's somehow not going to get them to where they want to be. And it's very understandable because high school freaks parents out. So it's, but I think when New York State has just launched yesterday this blue ribbon school thing that may or may not change the way we graduate kids, with the de-emphasis on the testing. But the kids coming out of Synergy will have a more interesting portfolio than the kids at the traditional high school. And they literally make portfolios. They all must have, every kid in the district must have a digital portfolio before they graduate.
Are the kids allowed to go in after freshman year? Do they have to start in freshman year? And have you had anybody drop out? They decided
Well, we don't drop out. They cross over the street. So a lot of kids, like I'm not going to replicate AP courses in the cloud. It's just silly. So they'll go spend half their morning taking AP classes and then come back to Synergy and use the resources in Synergy to get a lot of their work done before they go home. Technology. The interesting thing is like Synergy, there's no homework. And competency-based. Competency-based, there's no such thing as homework because you're completing a percentage of the course. So any work you do is work toward the course. And it's a crazy concept for society because the work you do at home, you're in the course doing the work. As you complete it, you're finishing the course. And what it opens up is this incredible ability to leverage digital content to go learn something you want. I'll give you my favorite example. 5-year-old boys. Go ask a 5-year-old boy about a dinosaur. We don't teach dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are not in our curriculum. But every 5-year-old boy can tell you names of dinosaurs. It's this phenomena that's, it's amazing to me, but it happens all the time. Kids go and learn stuff they're interested in, whether we teach it to them or not. Why? Because they're interested in it. It's a novel idea. Why don't we let them learn things that they're interested in? And you're going to see that with AI. We saw. Are you talking about eSpark later? Not really eSpark. But so eSpark came out with a new. I'm just using them because they came out with this this reading comprehension. They asked the kid 6 questions. What's the setting you want? What's the name of your character? What superpower do they have? They dump those 6 things into an AI, and it generates a reading comprehension. So now the kid's reading a story that they just created. How exponential is that interest level and attachment to this story now? And guess what? They ask the same questions that you want to generate questions. You could do it. So this is the power and the leverage that's coming, that we have this ability to high leverage, high interest stuff, giving kids choice in what they learn. and it freaks teachers out. I get it, because the control just went out the window.
That's wonderful. Now, I actually have one question myself, because I think many times as leaders, we try and think about change, and the bigger the organization we're in is, the harder it is to align everyone in that organization to move in the same direction. And I think that everyone in this room would appreciate to know what efforts you've made behind the scenes to make that happen, you know, in the high school, in the middle school, etc.
The vast majority of my time is communicating the vision. The overwhelming time I spend with my board, with my community, with my teachers, with my admin, is painting this picture of what's coming and how we have to align with what's coming. I tweeted 2 days ago, I saw an article in the local paper about flying taxis. I took a picture of the article and I said, are we preparing our learners for this? And it's up to like, I don't know, 7,000 views, because it resonates with people, but they're talking about testing flying taxis December of 24. You think we should be doing something about that? That's not an industry thing. That's a societal shift in how we think about interacting with our environment. School is, that's one of the things we're supposed to do. So constantly these videos, I hire a professional videographer to make these things. He's on staff. We make 20 a year. Why? We're communicating a vision. And not everybody loves the badge books. We still have people that, we have committee upon committee, and teachers, and I mean, it just gets, sometimes you get beat down and you're like, all right, I'm just going to give up. Most of the time you rally around it. The work we're doing is very good work. It's better for kids. So how do we keep that? And it's the same what Eric said this morning. It's a common language. How do you, every teacher in my district knows the instructional model. You cannot work in Mineola if you can't tell me the 4 pieces of that puzzle, period. Then the second question is, all right, what are you doing in those puzzle pieces? What's your responsibility in that work? And I don't want to bash Portrait of a Graduate, but it's too aspirational for me. Everyone latches on as this is the way to go, but it's not grassroots enough. How do you get people to buy into this vision? Is you have to make it tangible to them. Not we're going to make kids more, persistent. How? How are you doing that? What tasks are you giving them that are going to show that skill?
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that.